The first question to all of you, maybe, when you hear the phrase ESG under microscope, what is the first thought that comes to your mind?
You very rightly mentioned about the triple bottom line. You touched upon the triple bottom line, the planet, profit, and the people part. Interestingly, it got me remember interesting study done by the Fortune 500 companies. They started the first list in 1935 and last list got published in 2026. Interestingly, they did study that how many companies went into that particular list and came out. Almost more than 10,000 companies went into the Fortune 500 list and came out. Surprisingly, there were only 76 companies that could sustain in that Fortune 500 list since 1935 to 2026. They dwell down what was the reason. The reason they found is the quadruple bottom line approach, which is, you mentioned about the 4Ps product, but they mentioned the company which were more keen towards the purpose part, apart from people, planet, and profit, the ultimately 4Ps, the purpose. Only that could sustain in that particular cutthroat competition. So when it comes to the ESG under scrutiny, I think it's the moral responsibility of the sustainability practitioners and the leadership of the entities to put the weightage apart from 3P to the 4P, which is a quadruple bottom line, to the purpose, why they are doing what they are doing. Thank you.
So now this is something which is for anyone to answer. So we have spent more than 3 decades building sustainability frameworks, disclosures, reporting systems. Yet organizations still struggle with consistency and credibility. From your experience as a sustainability practitioner or a ESG practitioner, where do you think the ESG systems usually begin to weaken when they move from reporting to the real scrutiny? Excellent.
Just to add, Anirudh, on a lighter note, when you mentioned about the marriage between finance and sustainability, the question should have been whether it was the love marriage or the arranged one. And just to add what you profoundly mentioned and truly concur to that, the moment we talk about the ESG, we have to be clear in one sentence. ESG cannot be sustained only in the policies, procedures, and the boardroom discussions. It needs to be executed, needs to be seen within the culture, it needs to be weighed within the kind of the environment which is being worked upon with the people in that particular entity. I'll share a very interesting example. SRK, for those who are not aware about the gems and jewelry sector, Sri Ramakrishna Exports is world's largest diamond manufacturing and export entity. It's still a privately held company. We are not confined, we are not bound to do any kind of reporting, being a privately held. Still, since last 3 years, we choose to go not only for the reporting, but when we started our manufacturing, centralized the manufacturing in 2011, we thought let's make the manufacturing green. There we started our green building journey and started with the LEED Gold, then LEED Platinum. And you'd be glad to appreciate now both manufacturing facilities of SRK, which is not very large, only 1.5 million square feet each. They're both among the top 5 green buildings of the world, out of 1.85 million certified projects in 185 countries with USGBC. We never stopped there because the board, the leadership was quite pertinent that we should be doing something unique and setting a benchmark for the entire gems and jewelry sector. Then we said, let's map our net zero target, which was 2030. But the leadership was so keen, and the support of the sustainability team, even the people working, not very large organization, only 7,000 people. But those 7,000 people also showed their commitment. So we've been able to crack the net zero target in 2024. So we did it. Nobody told us to do that. Nobody is asking us to do BRSR reporting. So this is the story which I wanted to share, that one organization, the leadership should not be waiting for legislation to tell them what to do good about ESG, what to do good about the sustainability. It needs to come from within, whether it is part of the people's practices, whether it's part of the sustainability practices or the green practices. So I think this is the story which I wanted to talk. And ESG is not only about environment, it also includes the social part, the CSR part, the philanthropic part. You get to appreciate that SRK is not only world's largest, it's also one of the most compliant company across the gems and jewelry supply chain with the numerous audits of the traceabilities, the green practices, management practices, and including the welfare practices. So when it comes to the governance, the G part, and if anyone is aware that the new wage code is now implemented, we never waited for the rules to be notified. We initiated it 6 months back, and that too not only on a 50% cap, which the law is mandating the organization to do, we kept it at 55%. So why the organization cannot do something extraordinary in the interest of people, planet, and of course, if you are doing all three right, the profit needs to come. So that's my take on that. Thank you.
So since, and I'll actually stay with you, since you spoke about Sri Ramakrishna and how you are working in the ESG space with all the parameters, with people around. Now, lot of times, most of the times, organizations, and when we see most of the reports that are published, everything is very, very metrics oriented. And there is, end of the day, possibly when you are going for a filing or regulatory filing, people are bogged down with the pressures of that metrics you उसी time पे डालना है, we have to put it that point of time. How important is it to have this commitment with the people? How do you build a culture in an organization to really have the ESG commitment starting from the top to till the bottom, more as a culture than as a commitment and a regulatory commitment?
Very pertinent question, Anirbiji. As you rightly asked, irrespective of the level of competencies any sustainability or ESG professional or HR professional is having, if their leadership is not being supportive, they won't be able to put one stone from here to there. That's given. So to do something extraordinary, that commitment needs to come from the top. Until unless it is not coming from the top, the buy-in is not there, it's not going to happen. The moment the buy-in comes from the top level, I think it would make the job very easy for the sustainability professionals to match the guidelines, to match the matrices and match the timelines of the organization. I would say, and we say, and being I'm fortunate to wear the dual head, the HR and sustainability, but if I were to mention from the people's side, rather than the ESG disclosure and ESG reporting, people are more observant what the leaders are doing in this space. Whether the policy of your ESG policy or sustainability policy is saying something, and the leaders are truly observing in a 180 degree. Are they truly committed to it? So rather than a policy, the behavior of the leadership, the mindset, and the actions of the leadership is putting more weightage when it comes to the buy-in for the people to adapt the ESG policies and the sustainability practices. That's my take on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you had to leave this audience with a thought, and what would be the one practical takeaway today as a ESG professional or as a...
I'll keep it very short. From the organization lens, if you have to see the takeaways, it needs to be that the true test of ESG, it is no longer that what you add more to the abundance of those who are having much. It is to ensure whether are you providing enough to those who are having too little. Thank you.
Fantastic. I think we all resonate with this statement, and starting from Himanshu and till Sunil, everybody more or less spoke about the same thing. Now we have to conclude the discussion because this discussion go on and on. In fact, this entire day is not enough for this kind of a discussion. It's too short a time, but I'm sure whatever this esteemed panel has spoken is starting to trigger some thought in all of us here. And right now we can say the deeper question is, are we still building ESG merely just to report sustainability? Or are we genuinely redesigning the businesses and the institutions to create long-term human and planetary well-being? And I leave this session with this particular thought.
So, Anirudh sir, I would request you to felicitate the panelists, Dr. Nirav.